tomorrow morning at exactly 2:24 a.m. Mountain Time, while most of the Western Hemisphere is, completely asleep in the dark, the actual planet we are standing on is going to perform this massive, mathematically flawless split-second maneuver.
It really is incredible when you think about it.
Right. The Earth is going to hit the absolute maximum threshold of its planetary tilt. And for 48 hours surrounding that fraction of a second, whether you consciously realize it or not, your nervous system, your biology, and the environment around you are going to react to a profound shift in solar radiation.
Yeah, it is the ultimate reality check, honestly. I mean, we spend our lives operating inside this manufactured digital grid.
Mm-hmm.
We measure our days in fiscal quarters, calendar alerts, 30-minute meeting blocks. We treat time as something we just invented.
Totally.
But then you look at the physical mechanics of the solar system and you realize our digital calendars are just this tiny, fragile overlay sitting on top of a cosmic landscape that is, ancient, unimaginably massive, and completely indifferent to our schedules.
Welcome to another deep dive. We are so thrilled you're here because the timing of our conversation today is, well, it's incredibly serendipitous. It is Saturday, June 20th, 2026.
Which is huge.
Yeah, as we unpack this material together, you, the listener, we are all currently sitting inside the exact energetic window of the 2026 summer solstice.
A literal astronomical threshold.
Exactly. And to understand what that threshold actually means, we are diving into a highly detailed, deeply structural source text today. It's titled The Letha Paradigm, a guide to summer solstice crystal rituals.
And, a title like that might immediately make someone picture vague spells or superficial magic.
Right, like novelty shop stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But let's dispel that right out of the gate. This text is a stunning, deeply integrated intersection of astrophysics, historical anthropology, hard mineralogy, botany, and somatic psychology.
It's so dense.
It really is. It approaches the human body and the natural environment as one continuous circuit. Yeah. We often act like we are detached observers of the natural world, but this blueprint forces the practitioner to become an active participant in it.
So whether you're someone who has an entire bookshelf dedicated to esoteric traditions or a total geology and astronomy nerd, mm-hmm. or maybe you're just feeling deeply, thoroughly burned out by the hyper-digital, fragmented noise of modern life, there's something really profound in this text for you.
Absolutely.
It offers a literal physical reset button. But before we touch a single mineral or, brew any botanical elixirs, we have to look up. We have to start with the literal mechanics of the sky. Okay, let's unpack this.
The math is really where the foundation is laid here. The text opens with the literal astrophysical definition of the summer solstice, which is historically referred to within esoteric and pagan traditions as Letha.
Right.
To visualize what's happening, you have to picture the Earth's orientation in space. We are not spinning perfectly vertically as we orbit the sun. Our planet has an axial tilt.
We're leaning over at a 23.5-degree angle.
Exactly. And that tilt is the engine of our seasons. The summer solstice is the exact singular celestial moment when the northern hemisphere's 23.5-degree tilt leans most directly toward the sun.
Okay.
Geometrically speaking, the sun's rays become perfectly perpendicular to the Earth's surface at the Tropic of Cancer. This alignment forces the solar radiation to cut straight through the atmosphere rather than hitting it at an angle.
Which creates the longest day?
Yes, the longest duration of daylight, and consequently, the shortest night of the entire annual cycle in the northern hemisphere. It is the definitive mathematical commencement of astronomical summer.
Which is a very different beast than meteorological summer.
Oh, completely different.
Because meteorological summer is just a human convenience, right?
Right.
It automatically starts on June 1st, so climatologists can keep clean weather records.
Yeah.
But astronomical summer is a tangible cosmic event.
It's a physical reality.
I like to imagine you're sitting at a massive, very wide dining room table.
Mm-hmm.
Someone across from you is trying to tell you a secret, but the room is super loud.
Okay, yeah.
So you lean your torso all the way across the table, getting as physically close to them as possible to catch the conversation. That is the Earth right now. The northern hemisphere is leaning across the cosmic table, getting as close to the direct conversation of the sun as it ever will.
That is a perfect analogy. That paints the exact picture of the planetary posture. And what the source material does beautifully is break down why tracking the exact timing of this leaning in requires so much precision. The timing of the solstice experiences an annual drift. It doesn't land at the same hour or even necessarily the same day every year.
Because a single year isn't actually a clean 365 days.
Right. The physics dictate otherwise. The Earth's orbital duration, the time it takes to complete one full revolution around the sun, is actually approximately 365.2422 days.
That trailing decimal is so annoying for calendars.
It creates total chaos for our standardized calendars. It's the entire reason we have to implement leap year corrections. Because we are constantly adjusting our human clocks to catch up with the Earth's physical position, the moment of the solstice bounces back and forth, primarily oscillating between June 20th and June 21st.
So let's look at the hard data the text provides for this exact weekend. The 2026 Northern Hemisphere summer solstice occurs exactly tomorrow, June 21st, at 08.24 Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. There's a minor 1-minute variation depending on which specific astronomical model you reference. But 08.24 UTC is the scientific consensus. But here is the critical concept. This event does not roll across the globe like a sunrise. It happens for the entire planet simultaneously. It is one shared planetary instant.
Yes. Therefore, local time zones become paramount for anyone attempting to observe it or align a ritual practice with it. The text actually offers a localized example to demonstrate this phenomenon.
Oh, right, the Utah example.
Yeah, it looks at a location in the Mountain Daylight Time Zone, specifically Taylorsville, Utah. Because the planetary tilt peaks at 08.24 UTC, the mathematical reality is that in Taylorsville, the exact solstitial moment occurs at 2.24 a.m. Mountain Time.
Wow. Literally happening in the pitch black of night.
Exactly, hours before the sun actually crests the horizon, which doesn't occur there until 6:19 a.m.
Wait, okay. Let me push back on this for a second.
Sure.
If the actual literal astronomical event, the exact maximum peak of the 23.5-degree tilt, is just a fleeting fraction of a second happening in the dark at 2.24 a.m., why does this paradigm suggest that this entire 48-hour period is viable for these elaborate solar rituals? Are we just missing the target entirely if we do a ritual at noon tomorrow?
That's a great question. It comes down to the difference between mathematical calculation and the human biological experience. While the peak tilt is momentary, the text emphasizes that the visible duration of daylight plateaus. It forms this massive energetic curve.
Okay, I'm tracking.
If we look again at that localized example in the Salt Lake Valley, the total span of visible daylight for both June 20th and June 21st is approximately 14 hours and 48 minutes. The difference in daylight between those 2 days is measured in insignificant seconds.
Wow.
Because of this massive sustained plateau of solar radiation, the physical environment is basically bathed in a peak solar maximum for the entire 48 hours. The window is entirely open.
So rather than trying to, snap a photograph of a race car speeding by at 200 miles an hour, it's more like you are stepping into a massive, wide-open auditorium that has been completely flooded with floodlights. The light is everywhere.
Exactly. And our ancient ancestors implicitly understood how to map that auditorium. Long before the invention of atomic clocks or UTC coordinates, human beings were engineering massive architectural structures to track this exact plateau of light.
The history laid out in the text is staggering. 5,000 years ago, the architects of Stonehenge in England transported and erected those colossal megaliths specifically to frame the solstice sunrise. The heel stone perfectly captures that first beam of light.
It's unbelievable engineering.
And it wasn't just an isolated European phenomenon either. Look at the indigenous mound builders at Cahokia in what is now southern Illinois. They constructed Woodhenge, which is a series of massive wooden posts that functioned as a solar calendar, tracking the exact maximums and minimums of the sun's path.
Yeah, the text also points to the Bighorn Medicine Wheel in Wyoming.
Oh, I hadn't heard of that one before.
It's fascinating. It's a limestone structure perched nearly 10,000 feet up in the Bighorn Mountains. It features 28 distinct stone spokes radiating from a central cairn. Those 28 spokes actually map to the days of the lunar cycle, but the central alignment is designed to perfectly bisect the rising of the summer solstice sun. And other spokes align with the heliacal rising of prominent stars like Sirius and Rigel. They were quite literally pulling the architecture of the cosmos down into the dirt.
And it isn't just man-made structures. The text highlights how ancient peoples utilized natural topography, too. Returning to Utah, there is a distinct optical phenomenon along the Wasatch Front.
Right.
As the solstice sun rises in the east, the very first rays of light completely bypass the eastern mountains where the sun is actually emerging from. Instead, the light travels all the way across the valley and violently illuminates the western-facing slopes of the Ochre Mountains.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Only after the western mountains are bathed in gold does the light finally crest the eastern peaks, like Mount Olympus, spilling into the valley below. Indigenous populations observed this specific refracted window of light. The text references the Table Rock petroglyph near Utah Lake, where ancient carvers etched precise line and dot motifs that perfectly frame and interact with that specific solstice shadow.
See, if we connect this to the bigger picture, humans didn't simply watch this celestial alignment passively. They recognized it as a profound shift in their environment, and to make sense of it, they began to attach mythology to the math.
Right. Knowing how the sky works mathematically is merely the first step. The second step is figuring out what it means for the human condition. And that takes us directly into the deep cultural mythologies that form the backbone of the Latha paradigm.
Yeah, to understand the mythology, we really should examine the etymology of the word itself. The text details how the term solstice derives from two Latin roots: sol, meaning sun, and sister, meaning to stand still.
The sun stands still.
Exactly. From our vantage point on Earth, the mechanics of the tilt create a powerful optical illusion. For a few days surrounding the solstice, the sun appears to halt its northward progression across the horizon. It pauses. It hovers in the same location for a few days before it slowly begins to reverse its course toward the south. And metaphysical traditions universally recognize this celestial pause as a psychological and energetic threshold. It signifies peak manifestation, the height of vitality, and the literal culmination of the intentions practitioners may have planted during the vernal equinox in the spring.
And different cultures map their own stories onto this threshold. In classical antiquity, the Romans threw massive festivals honoring Apollo. Apollo was the deity of light, truth, and healing qualities perfectly associated with the sun at its zenith. But in Northern Europe, Celtic and Scandinavian communities had entirely different responses. They lit massive communal bonfires on the highest hills. The logic was deeply tied to sympathetic magic. They believed that by creating these immense blazes, they were physically echoing and bolstering the sun's power, ensuring agricultural fertility, and creating a wall of fire to protect their villages from malevolent forces.
The text dives particularly deep into esoteric neo-pagan mythology to illustrate the psychological weight of the solstice here. Specifically, it explores the narrative of the Oak King and the Holly King.
This was easily one of those compelling frameworks in the entire text. Let's lay this dynamic out.
Yeah, within this tradition, the solar year is seen as a continuous struggle between two mythic rulers. The Oak King is the lord of the waxing light. His reign officially begins in the darkest depths of winter, at the winter solstice.
Okay.
As the days lengthen, his power grows exponentially. He reaches the absolute zenith of his strength at Letha, the summer solstice.
He basically achieves total solar dominance.
Yes, but the profound twist in this mythology is that the Oak King's greatest victory is simultaneous with his total defeat.
Wait, really?
Yeah. At the exact moment he reaches his zenith at Letha, he is overthrown by his counterpart, the Holly King. The Holly King then takes the crown, assuming governance over the waning half of the year. He rules as the days gradually shorten and the darkness creeps back in until the cycle resets in winter.
It is the ultimate cosmic tag team wrestling match.
That's a fun way to look at it.
I mean, the reigning champion fights his way to the absolute top. But the fundamental rules of the universe dictate that he must surrender the belt at the exact second of his greatest victory. But I have a question for you and the listener to consider.
Go for it.
Why intentionally think about the coming darkness, the eventual return of winter, on literally the longest, brightest day of the year? Why ruin the party?
Well, because joy without context is hollow. The text posits that this dualistic awareness prevents the solstice ritual from devolving into a shallow, blind celebration.
That makes sense.
By acknowledging the Holly King, by recognizing that the light is finite, the practitioner is forced into a grounded awareness of the cyclical nature of existence. You confront the inevitable return of the dark so that you do not squander the light. It is profound psychological preparation.
It prevents us from taking the light for granted. It creates an anchor of gratitude. And there's another threshold the text brings up that requires that grounded awareness. St. John's Eve. This is the night immediately preceding midsummer. Historically, European traditions viewed this specific night as a highly porous temporal boundary. The veil between realities thins out. The spirit world and the material plane directly intersect.
It's considered a very volatile time.
Exactly. Because of this perceived volatility, agricultural communities engaged in hyper-specific actions. They venture out at dawn or precisely at midnight to gather solar herbs. They believed this exact alignment maximized the phytochemical and energetic potency of the plants. They'd bind these midsummer bundles with red thread, representing the life force, to hang over their doorways.
They recognize the solstice as an incredibly potent but potentially dangerous window. To harness the peak solar maximum and to simultaneously build a protective bulwark against the coming wane of the year, practitioners required tools. They needed physical anchors to catch the light.
Which takes us out of the realm of sky observation and myth, and forces us to literally dig into the dirt. We have to look at the mineral realm.
The text provides an exhaustive breakdown of what it titles the crystalline materia medica, and the foundational premise of this section is critical. Within the Letha paradigm, crystals are never categorized as passive decorations or simple good luck charms. They are functionally defined as energetic transducers.
Let's define transducer for a second, because that's a hard science term. Like, a microphone is a transducer, right? Mm. It takes the physical acoustic energy of my voice and converts it into an electrical signal. A speaker is also a transducer. It takes an electrical signal and converts it back into physical sound waves.
A brilliant parallel. The text anchors the concept of crystalline transduction in the hard science of mineralogy. Crystals, by their geological definition, possess highly ordered, repeating atomic lattices. This isn't just esoteric theory.
No, it's chemistry.
Exactly. Consider the phenomenon of piezoelectricity in quartz. If you apply mechanical stress, if you physically squeeze a piece of quartz, that structural lattice generates a measurable electrical charge. This is the literal technology that powers quartz watches and sonar equipment.
Hard physical structure creates an energetic output.
Yes. The metaphysical theory simply extends this principle. The Letha paradigm suggests that when these structured geometric lattices are exposed to the intense electromagnetic radiation of the solstice sun, they undergo a form of geometric resonance.
Okay.
They capture that broad spectrum solar energy, filter it through their specific atomic structure, and amplify highly specific archetypal frequencies. For the summer solstice, the text focuses heavily on minerals that resonate with the fire element, the Manipura, which is the solar plexus chakra governing willpower, and the Svadhisthana, the sacral chakra governing creation.
Let's unpack the actual toolkit here, because the text groups these minerals very intentionally. We can look at the amplifiers first. The primary stone listed is citrine, and the text notes it has a Mohs hardness of 7.
We should probably define the Mohs scale for context here. Created in 1812 by Friedrich Mohs, it is a qualitative scale characterizing scratch resistance. It runs from 1 to 10. Talc is a 1. You can basically scratch it with a fingernail. A diamond is a 10. Quartz sits at a 7. This scale becomes a vital safety metric later in the text.
So citrine is a solid 7. It's universally recognized in these traditions as the ultimate sunshine stone, or the merchant stone. Its yellow color actually derives from trace amounts of iron within the quartz lattice. The text states it vibrates with warmth, joy, and acts as a primary anchor for manifesting financial abundance and deep-seated confidence. Next up is sunstone, sitting at a Mohs hardness of 6 to 6.5. It's a member of the feldspar group.
Sunstone is fascinating because of a physical phenomenon called eventurescence. It contains these tiny plate-like inclusions of copper or hematite. When light hits these inclusions, it creates a glowing, peachy luminescence from within the stone.
Wow.
Yeah, within this paradigm, sunstone is believed to hold the literal, unyielding frequency of the sun's core. Practitioners deploy it to inspire steadfast leadership and to aggressively burn away self-doubt.
Then we have carnelian, a chalcedony with a Mohs hardness of 6.5 to 7. Its fiery orange-red hue comes from iron oxide. The text suggests that carnelian literally mirrors the oppressive heat of midsummer. You don't use carnelian to relax.
Definitely not.
You use it when you need to spark bold action, physical vitality, and the unyielding courage to pursue ambitious goals. It's an adrenaline stone.
But an engine cannot just rev endlessly, It needs a chassis. The text introduces a critical counterbalance to these amplifying stones, pyrite.
Fool's gold.
Exactly. Pyrite has a Mohs hardness of 6 to 6.5, and chemically it is an iron sulfide. What makes pyrite essential here is its metallic luster and its distinct cubic structure. It forms in perfect hard-edged geometric cubes in nature.
That's wild.
While stones like citrine and sunstone are expanding and radiating energy outward, pyrite is intensely grounding. It captures that high-frequency solar radiation and anchors it directly down into the material plane. It is utilized to forge unwavering willpower and to create a dense, protective shield around the practitioner's bioenergetic field.
I really love how the text positions clear quartz in this dynamic. Clear quartz is a pure silicon dioxide lattice, Mohs hardness of 7. The text labels it the master amplifier. basically possesses an unparalleled structural ability to magnify the properties of any stone placed near it.
Right.
If we think about the architecture of this toolkit, here's where it gets really interesting. Clear quartz is like handing someone a megaphone at an outdoor concert. It takes whatever intention you feed into it and blasts it out with laser precision. But pyrite is the thick, heavy lead cable keeping the stage equipment tethered to the concrete so the entire concert doesn't fly away in a windstorm.
That structural analogy is perfectly aligned with the text's methodology. And the Materia Medica includes a broader supporting cast tailored for specific needs, too. It highlights tiger's eye, a quartz replacement of crystallite, which ancient Egyptians revered as the embodied stone of the sun god Ra.
Oh, interesting.
It also mentions golden healer quartz for accessing higher cosmic wisdom, and rainbow fluorite, which is used specifically to organize chaotic mental energy into clear, actionable logic.
The inclusion of red jasper really stands out to me. It's a dense, opaque root chakra stone, and the text provides a very pragmatic reason for including it. During high-energy solar rituals, the practitioner risks becoming energetically unmoored.
Yeah, totally scattered.
Right. Red jasper's high iron content literally makes it feel heavier in the hand. It serves as a psychological and physical anchor, ensuring the nervous system doesn't get totally spun out by the intense solar focus.
Wait, look at the primary list we just discussed, though. Citrine, sunstone, carnelian, tiger's eye. Are we simply selecting these minerals because they happen to be yellow, orange, and red? Is the Letha paradigm just based on aesthetic color coordination, or is there an objective scientific rationale underlying this specific toolkit?
That is the exact skepticism a logical mind brings to this, and the text anticipates it by constantly pivoting back to the physical mineralogy. Yes, the colors correspond symbolically to the sun, but the magic, according to this text, relies heavily on the molecular structure. It constantly references the Mohs hardness ratings to dictate how a stone behaves.
Form is function.
Exactly. It highlights the iron oxide in carnelian creating its heat and the cubic lattice of pyrite creating its density. The atomic architecture is what dictates the energetic function.
But before you grab a handful of pyrite and quartz, run outside and toss them into the bright midday sun to soak up that energy. The text issues a massive, unavoidable warning. These highly structured tools require intense, precise preparation. Mishandling them will literally physically destroy them.
Which brings us into a section the text ominously titles Energetic Hygiene. Protocols for Purification and Solar Charging. The core premise is that a crystal is basically an energetic hard drive. During its extraction from the earth, its mechanical polishing, its transport across the globe, and its handling by various merchants, it accumulates stagnant, dissonant frequencies.
You cannot program a crystal with a precise new intention if its lattice is already clogged with energetic static. The text states unequivocally that preliminary clearing is non-negotiable.
But the methodology of clearing is fraught with danger because you're dealing with real chemistry. The text advocates heavily for dry, non-invasive methodologies. The primary recommendation is acoustic resonance.
This relies entirely on the physics of vibrational displacement.
You use Tibetan singing bowls or quartz tuning forks. You strike the instrument near the crystals and sustain the tone for 2 to 3 minutes. The intense organized sound waves physically travel through the air, penetrate the crystal lattice, and literally shatter the dense, chaotic, energetic blockages within the stone. You're resetting the lattice through sheer sound, completely avoiding physical contact.
The text also outlines smoke cleansing passing the stones through the dense smoke of white sage, sweetgrass, or palo santo for 30 to 60 seconds. Alternatively, it suggests burying the stones in a bowl of uncooked brown rice for 24 hours.
Oh, the rice method.
Yeah, the rice acts as a physical and energetic desiccant, drawing out the stagnation. Crucially, though, the text notes that the rice absorbs this toxicity and must be immediately discarded.
Don't cook that rice afterward.
Definitely not.
Then the text pivots to the danger zone. Hydrological and chemical contraindications.
This is the exact area where well-meaning practitioners make catastrophic errors. There's this highly romanticized notion online of taking your crystals down to the ocean to wash them in salt water or leaving them in a running stream. The text aggressively warns that this poses severe, irreversible chemical risks to certain minerals.
Let's go back to our grounding cable, pyrite. As we established, it is an iron sulfide. If pyrite is exposed to moisture, be it a bowl of water, sea salt spray, or even heavy ambient humidity, it undergoes a rapid chemical reaction.
It oxidizes.
Rapidly, it will rust and potentially produce minor amounts of sulfuric acid. The metallic luster will degrade permanently into a dull, crumbling mess.
And the destruction extends to soft, porous, or water-soluble minerals as well. The text specifically flags selenite, malachite, calcite, lepidolite, and kyanite. If you submerge these in water, particularly salt solutions, they will dissolve, fracture along their cleavage lines, or suffer permanent surface etching.
That's terrible.
Furthermore, malachite contains high levels of copper. Submerging it in water can create a highly toxic copper solution.
Taking a piece of porous malachite or iron-rich pyrite and throwing it into a bowl of salt water is exactly like taking a dirty laptop and throwing it into a dishwasher. Yes, the laptop needed to be cleaned. But just because it needs cleaning doesn't mean you use soap and water.
I love that analogy.
You have to understand the hardware you're operating. The text establishes a firm rule. Only highly durable stones, those ranking a solid 7 or higher on the Mohs scale, like clear quartz or amethyst, can safely handle a brief rinse in natural water.
Once the stones are safely purified and their internal architecture is reset, they must be charged. They need to be filled with the specific peak solstitial energy. But here again, the text introduces a highly counterintuitive caveat.
This detail is wild. The text states that charging your crystals in the solstice sun should only occur during the gentle morning hours, specifically between 6:00 a.m. and 9:00 a.m., and only for a duration of 1 to 2 hours. Why? Because prolonged exposure to intense, direct ultraviolet radiation will trigger a photochemical reaction that permanently bleaches or fades light-sensitive stones.
UV light literally breaks the bonds of the color centers within the crystal lattice. The text specifically names amethyst, rose quartz, fluorite, aquamarine, and celestite as highly vulnerable to UV degradation.
Isn't it wonderfully ironic that you can literally give sunburn to your crystals if you leave them in the solstice sun for too long? You're engaging in a massive ritual to honor the absolute peak of the summer sun, but you have to hide your tools from it by 9 a.m.
It demands profound situational awareness from the practitioner. You cannot just blindly worship the sun. You must respect its destructive capacity. And to balance this out, the text introduces a highly specific astronomical synergy occurring during the 2026 solstice.
Right, the lunar phase.
Yeah, it points to the exact phase of the moon. During this 48-hour window, the moon is rapidly progressing from a waxing crescent, which is about 30.3% illuminated on June 19th, to a first quarter moon, reaching 51.7% illumination by June 21st.
The lunar light is aggressively growing in the night sky.
The text proposes utilizing this growth. By leaving the purified stones out overnight under the moonlight, the practitioner absorbs the waxing lunar momentum. This perfectly counterbalances the intense, active, masculine yang energy of the solstice sun with the receptive, intuitive, feminine yin energy of the waxing moon. The result is a perfectly harmonized, dual-charged, energetic tool.
At this stage in the process, our mineral tools are fundamentally prepped. They are acoustically purified, they're dual-charged by the sun and the moon, they haven't rusted from improper water exposure, and their color hasn't been destroyed by UV bleaching. They're ready to be deployed.
Ready to go.
But you don't just dump a handful of charged stones onto a table. The Letha paradigm now shifts its focus from the individual stones to the architecture of how they are arranged. We're moving deeply into the realm of sacred geometry and the construction of crystal grids.
What's fascinating here is that the transition from individual stones to a grid is the transition from simple preparation to advanced application. The text defines a crystal grid not as an aesthetic arrangement to make your altar look pretty, but as a highly intentional, geometrically aligned architecture.
That relies on mathematical resonance.
Exactly. The text explains that these specific geometric templates reflect fundamental mathematical structures found throughout nature, biology, and the cosmos. When you take charged crystals and place them upon the intersecting nodes of these geometric patterns, their electromagnetic fields overlap and cross-amplify.
Right.
The text posits a profound mathematical formula. A properly aligned grid of 7 crystals produces an energetic output that is exponentially greater than the sum of those 7 individual stones. It ceases to be a collection of rocks and becomes a unified, self-sustaining energetic circuit.
And the shape you select dictates the fundamental flavor and function of that circuit. The text outlines several core templates. It begins with the seed of life.
Ah!
If you map this out with a compass, it is a pattern of 7 interlocking circles. The geometry starts with one central circle and 6 perfectly symmetrical circles overlapping its edge. The text dictates that this pattern represents absolute genesis and infinite possibility. You deploy the Seed of Life template when you are initiating a brand new project, a new career path, or a new relationship.
From the seed, the geometry naturally expands into the flower of life. By continuing to overlap circles at the intersecting nodes, the pattern grows to 19 interlocking circles. This complex template represents the universal interconnectedness of all things. The text reserves the flower of life for advanced, macro-level manifestation and broad spiritual ascension work.
The text also explores angular geometry, specifically the Star of David, or the hexagram. This 6-pointed star, created by 2 intersecting triangles, represents the perfect union of opposites, as above, so below. It is utilized for establishing deep, impenetrable energetic protection.
It's a very sturdy shape.
Totally. Moving away from static shapes, it lists the spiral, which represents fluid evolution and the releasing of stubborn, cyclical stagnation. Finally, there's the torus. In physics, a torus is a self-feeding, donut-shaped vortex of energy.
It represents continuous, self-sustaining flow. The text recommends the torus grid for maintaining steady, ongoing dynamics like long-term health or stable marital relationships.
Once you've selected the appropriate geometric template for your goal, the physical construction of the grid requires highly specific mechanics. It all begins with the anchor of intention. The text requires the practitioner to crystallize their desire into a very specific present-tense affirmation. You must write this explicitly on a piece of natural parchment.
The linguistic phrasing here is paramount. You do not write, "I will be confident," or "I want to be wealthy."
No future tense.
Right. The intention must be written in the present tense. I am confident. I possess abundance. You are programming the circuit with a reality that already exists.
This parchment is placed directly in the dead center of the geometric grid. Next, you select your master crystal, typically a large, commanding piece of clear quartz, or a towering citrine point. You place this master stone directly on top of the written parchment. This central stone anchors the core frequency of the entire structure.
The surrounding architecture is then built out. Let's say the practitioner is constructing a grid for career momentum. They would place smaller support stones, like green aventurine for luck and pyrite for grounding, on the outer intersecting nodes radiating outward from that central citrine.
Okay.
The text notes a crucial procedural detail. These support stones must be placed in a deliberate clockwise sequence. In esoteric tradition, clockwise movement draws energy inward and generates forward, building momentum. Counterclockwise disperses energy.
So the stones are placed, the geometry is perfect, but the text insists that the grid remains completely dormant at this stage. It's just a pretty arrangement on a table until it is formally activated. The practitioner must consciously link the energetic fields together.
Yeah, the text provides 3 distinct methodologies for this activation sequence. The first and most robust is the up-back-over method, sometimes called the connect the dots technique.
How does that work?
Holding a quartz wand, or simply using the index finger of your dominant hand, you start by touching the central master stone. You trace an invisible line of energy outward to the first support stone. You draw the line back to the center stone. Then you trace the line over to the second support stone. You repeat this radial stitching pattern until every single outer stone has been directly linked back to the center core.
Visually, it's exactly like a metaphysical seamstress. You are literally stitching the invisible electromagnetic fields together, lacing up a powerful battery pack so the current flows in a perfect, uninterrupted loop.
Exactly. The second technique is the cake cut method. The practitioner traces an energetic circle completely around the outer perimeter of the grid to establish a contained boundary, and then draws straight intersecting lines from the center outward, slicing the grid into energetic quadrants.
That sounds faster.
It is. The third technique is the hand hover method, which relies heavily on visualization. You hold your dominant hand above the entire grid, moving in a slow, clockwise circle, vividly visualizing a descending vortex of golden solar light sinking into the stones.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Do we really need the elaborate geometric map, the compass-drawn circles, the parchment paper, the wands, the intricate invisible tracing? Can't the listener just take a really nice cleansed piece of citrine, put it in their pocket, and call it a day?
Well, the text argues that the difference lies in efficiency and continuous momentum. The Letha paradigm states that a single stone requires constant interaction and mental focus from the practitioner to remain active. It is easily overwhelmed by ambient static.
Okay, see.
An activated crystal grid, however, establishes a continuous self-feeding broadcast. Because the stones are geometrically aligned to amplify one another, the grid requires a fraction of the daily maintenance. It basically does the heavy lifting for the practitioner.
It's the difference between navigating a dark forest by holding a small flashlight in your hand versus spending the afternoon wiring a massive automated floodlight system into your house's electrical grid. Yes, wiring the floodlights takes a lot of meticulous, annoying work up front. But once that circuit is closed and the switch is flipped, the lights stay on. The grid works while you sleep.
Exactly.
Crystals form the skeletal structure, the hard bones of this ritual practice. But the text doesn't stop with the mineral kingdom. It brings in what I'd characterize as the vibrant flesh and blood of the earth. We are moving into botanical synergies.
A solstice altar, according to the text, must function as a literal microcosm of the midsummer earth. The geometry of stones is too sterile on its own. The altar must be draped in the vibrant, living colors of the season, blazing golds, yellows, fiery oranges, deep reds, and verdant greens. And to truly anchor this frequency, the practitioner must incorporate living or freshly dried plant matter.
And when it comes to solstice botanicals, there is one undisputed absolute heavyweight champion outlined in this text. St. John's wort, scientifically classified as Hypericum perforatum. The lore and the biology surrounding this specific plant are incredibly intense.
It is the quintessential solar herb. The text first points out the historical etymology. Its very name is inextricably linked to the feast of St. John the Baptist, a Christianized midsummer festival that falls on June 24th, mere days after the astronomical solstice.
And the physical anatomy of the plant itself is a masterpiece of solar symbolism. It features these incredibly bright star-shaped yellow flowers with 5 distinct petals and a chaotic burst of long, prominent stamens shooting out from the center. It looks exactly like a vibrant, rudimentary drawing of the sun radiating rays of light, but its significance goes far deeper than its appearance. The text dives into its robust, almost intimidating European folklore. Historically, St. John's wort was known by the Latin moniker fuga daemonum, which translates literally to the devil's flight.
Yeah, it was prized above all other botanicals for its unparalleled ability to ward off negative entities, dispel melancholia, and establish an impenetrable protective barrier against supernatural malice.
But the folklore is rooted in a startling biological reality. The text describes this in vivid detail. If you take the yellow petals of St. John's wort and hold them up directly to the sunlight, you will see they are perforated with tiny translucent dots. These are actual oil glands.
Right.
If you physically crush those tiny glands between your fingers, they rupture and yield a vivid, intensely dark, blood-red juice.
This is due to a chemical compound called hypericin.
Historically, this red secretion was known as St. John's blood. It was aggressively harvested to be used in healing salves, tinctures, and protective charms. Solstice traditions dictated very rigid parameters for its harvest, too. To capture maximum magical and phytochemical potency, practitioners were required to gather this herb exactly at dawn or exactly at midnight on Midsummer's Eve, precisely while the plant was still heavy with ambient dew.
St. John's wort perfectly encapsulates the complex, dual nature of the Letha paradigm we discussed earlier. It's a flower that perfectly mirrors the bright, life-giving yellow sun, yet it literally bleeds deep red, symbolizing both vital life force and profound, fierce protection against the coming dark.
The text supplements St. John's wort with a specific supporting cast of botanicals. It highlights calendula, which it poetically titles the Bride of the Sun.
Because of its heliotropic behavior.
Exactly. Calendula flowers physically turn their heads to track the sun's movement across the sky throughout the day. The text also includes chamomile, utilized to provide a soothing, cooling balance to the aggressive fire energy of the season, preventing burnout. And it heavily incorporates rosemary and sage, employed for accessing profound ancestral wisdom and establishing firm, clarifying boundaries.
And the practitioner doesn't simply lay these dried herbs on a table. The text introduces an active, transmutative practice it calls solar alchemy. This is the precise methodology of capturing the fleeting solstice energy and imbuing it into a programmable, biologically ingestible medium water.
We are talking about the creation of sun water and sun tea. The physical mechanics of sun water are profoundly simple, yet highly intentional. The practitioner takes a thoroughly cleansed, clear glass jar, fills it entirely with pure spring water, and places it directly in the path of the sunlight.
Right.
You can submerge water-safe crystals, like our Mo 7 clear quartz, directly into the water, Or you can build a protective ring of reactive, non-water-safe stones, like pyrite or carnelian, around the outside of the glass, allowing their electromagnetic frequencies to penetrate the water without risking chemical degradation. The crucial variable here is timing. When you capture the light dictates the energetic flavor of the water.
The text actually delineates 3 distinct, time-bound variations of sun water. The first is sunrise water. Captured only during the first hour of dawn, this water vibrates with the frequency of absolute new beginnings, fresh perspective, and gentle initiation. The second is zenith water. Captured precisely at astrological noon, when the sun is highest, this water encapsulates maximum vitality, unapologetic courage, and the brute force required for peak achievement. Finally, there is sunset water. Bathed entirely in the fading amber light of dusk, this water promotes graceful cycles of completion, gratitude, and the setting of firm energetic boundaries as the light wanes.
If the practitioner wishes to directly integrate the botanical toolkit, the text provides methodologies for sun tea. It outlines a recipe called Solstice Sunshine Tea, a bright blend utilizing linden, which the text affectionately calls the tree of happiness, combined with calendula petals and fresh lemon.
Sounds delicious.
Right. Alternatively, it offers the Herbal Paradise Punch, a deep ruby red brew leveraging hibiscus, rose hips, and fresh orange slices. The fundamental magic of sun tea is that it relies on the gentle, ambient, radiant heat of the solar energy to steep the herbs, rather than utilizing the harsh, violent boiling water of a stovetop kettle.
The text accurately notes that this slow ambient extraction prevents the burning of delicate botanical leaves and stops the massive release of bitter tannins. It yields a fundamentally smoother, sweeter extraction.
It is quite literally a slow cooker recipe powered directly by the radiation of a 4.5 billion-year-old star. But right at the climax of this alchemy section, the text drops a massive, non-negotiable safety protocol.
Oh, yes, this is crucial.
It dictates that the jar must be securely covered with cheesecloth to prevent insect contamination. Furthermore, it states with absolute emphasis that the tea must never, under any circumstances, be left to steep in the sun for more than 2 to 4 hours.
This is perhaps the most critical point of practical integration in the entire text.
I have to admit, when I first read that constraint, I felt a natural, esoteric pushback. It feels so magical, leaving this beautiful glass jar of water and flowers out to absorb the power of the solstice sun. Why arbitrarily cut the magic off at 4 hours? If the sun is the source of the power, why wouldn't I leave it out all day long to soak up every single drop of available sunshine?
Because the text forces the practitioner to remember that metaphysics does not and cannot overrule microbiology. Water, organic plant matter, and warm ambient solar heat create the perfect environment for an incubator.
Yikes.
Yeah. The text states with clinical clarity that exceeding a 4-hour window in the warm sun introduces a severe literal risk of massive bacterial and fungal proliferation within the water.
You might be successfully manifesting spiritual abundance, but if you drink it, you will also be manifesting a severe, very physical stomach bug.
Precisely. The practitioner is instructed to bring the jar inside and immediately refrigerate it after the 4-hour mark to rapidly drop the temperature and halt the microbial process. This safety protocol is a prime example of how the Letha paradigm constantly demands that the practitioner remain firmly grounded in harsh physical reality, even while deeply engaging with esoteric, energetic concepts.
We have meticulously gathered all the components. We understand the astrophysical math of the planetary tilt. We understand the dualistic mythology of the Oak and Holly kings. We have our precise mineral toolkit, thoroughly cleansed through acoustic resonance and safely dual-charged by the sun and moon without rusting or bleaching.
Yes, all checked off.
We understand the mathematical geometry required to build a self-sustaining crystal grid. And we have our botanical elixirs brewing safely within their strict 4-hour window. The pieces are all on the board. Now, the text synthesizes everything. It moves into the final, massive section, the comprehensive solstice ritual praxis.
This is the culmination of the text. It provides a multi-phase, step-by-step master sequence. The explicitly stated goal of this overarching ritual is not simply casting a vague spell to feel good. It is structurally designed to physically regulate the practitioner's nervous system and forcefully align their human biorhythms with the mathematical reality of the solar maximum.
It's an exercise in profound somatic integration. Let's walk through the architecture of these phases. The sequence begins with phase 1, which occurs at dawn. The text instructs the practitioner to wake before the light and find an eastern-facing location. If the practitioner is situated in a mountainous region, the text highly suggests locating a specific topographical notch, such as a saddle between 2 peaks, to serve as a visual anchoring frame for the rising sun.
The ritual commences approximately 15 minutes prior to actual sunrise. The practitioner initiates an energetic sweep of their physical body and their immediate environment using the dense smoke of sage or Palo Santo. The text highlights a physiological mechanism here. The strong olfactory stimulation of the smoke, combined with the required deep rhythmic breathing, immediately triggers the amygdala and initiates a parasympathetic nervous system response.
The smoke literally tells the primitive brain that the environment is safe. Once grounded, as the ambient light begins to aggressively increase, the practitioner engages the physical body through yoga. Specifically, the text prescribes 12 continuous rounds of Surya Namaskar, the traditional sun salutations. The practitioner flows from mountain pose, reaching up to the sky, folding forward to the earth, jumping back into a plank, lowering through chaturanga, pressing up into upward-facing dog, and pulling back into downward-facing dog. The text notes that these 12 distinct physical movements symbolically map to the 12 months of the year, or the 12 hours of daylight.
It's intensely physical.
The intense, repetitive physical exertion generates profound internal metabolic heat. As the sun finally visibly breaches the eastern horizon or crests the mountain notch, the practitioner stops, holds a piece of golden healer quartz or fiery carnelian directly over their heart center, and initiates the brewing of their sun tea.
That dawn initiation transitions seamlessly into phase 2, which is timed to occur precisely at astrological noon. This is the absolute peak of the sun's daily arc, the moment of maximum solar radiation. Here, the text dictates that the ritual must shift its focus entirely to the Manipura, the solar plexus chakra located in the abdomen, which governs personal willpower, identity, and metabolic fire.
The practitioner engages in a specific Kundalini spinal flex. Sitting cross-legged on the earth, holding their hands over their solar plexus, they rapidly rotate their torso in a churning, clockwise motion, visualizing a blazing, spinning sun sitting directly in their abdomen. And then, at the peak of this physical exertion, the text introduces acoustic entrainment. The practitioner begins to forcefully chant a bija mantra, a seed syllable.
The text delves into incredible linguistic and anatomical granularity here. The prescribed mantra is RAM, R-A-M, but it breaks down the specific phonetic components of the sound. The rolling, vibrating consonant R is designed to invoke the fire element, Agni. The short, deep central vowel A grounds the vibration down into the root chakra, providing physical stability. And the closing, humming consonant M introduces Shakti, the transformative creative force.
The text instructs the practitioner to sustain this chant for exactly 108 repetitions, and it makes a massive, fascinating physiological claim. Sustained, forceful, vibrational chanting of this specific phonetic frequency physically stimulates the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve, and it is the primary massive highway of the parasympathetic nervous system, wandering from the brainstem all the way down through the chest and into the abdomen.
So what does this all mean? How does chanting actually affect it? Well, because the vagus nerve has branches that run right through the pharynx and the larynx and the throat. When you sustain that deep M hum of the RAM mantra, your vocal cords vibrate violently. That physical vibration literally massages the auricular branch of the vagus nerve.
Exactly.
This physical stimulation forcefully increases vagal tone, which immediately signals the heart to slow down, lowers blood pressure, and shuts off the body's cortisol production. It's like the RAM mantra is a physical tuning fork. You strike it with your vocal cords, and the physical vibrations literally travel down the nerve fibers, forcefully tuning the body's internal, chaotic, stressed-out noise into a specific, highly organized frequency of calm, focused power.
It is quite literally acoustic neuroscience wrapped inside an esoteric tradition. Following this intense physical and vocal exertion, the practitioner's nervous system is primed. They are now ready to move to phase 3, grid dedication.
This is the moment you deploy the crystal grid architecture we explored earlier. The practitioner takes their highly regulated focus and crystallizes their specific intention onto the parchment paper. They build the geometric grid on their altar, place the central citrine over the parchment, arrange the support stones in that specific clockwise sequence, and finally they activate the entire circuit using a quartz wand and the up, back, over visualization method. The energetic circuit is locked in place.
But the ritual is not complete until phase 4. Transmutative release. The text presents a fundamental, unavoidable esoteric truth here. In order to manifest new realities, you must immolate the obsolete. You cannot pour fresh, vital water into a vessel that is already overflowing with stagnant mud.
You have to physically and energetically empty the cup. The text instructs the practitioner to hold a piece of highly grounding stone, like fire quartz or muscovite, and engage in brutal introspection. You must identify your internal blocks, your egoic illusions, and the deep-seated fears that are actively holding you back from your stated intention. The practitioner physically writes these limiting, toxic beliefs onto pieces of flash paper or dried bay leaves.
A fireproof copper cauldron is prepared on the altar. The practitioner ignites a small blend of dried, protective solstice herbs, specifically the St. John's wort and sage we discussed, and they cast the written limiting beliefs directly into the open flames.
You watch the paper curl, burn, and turn to ash. You utilize the visual stimuli to anchor the belief that this stagnant, heavy energy is being completely consumed, broken down, and neutralized by the element of fire. To finally close the massive energetic circuit of the day, the practitioner strains the sun tea they brewed, drinking it to literally internalize the captured physical solar frequency. Finally, they take the cooled ashes from the copper cauldron, carry them outside, and bury them deep in the earth.
The formal, active ritual space is officially closed. However, the text explicitly notes that the activated crystal grid must remain undisturbed on the altar, serving as a continuous, self-sustaining energetic broadcast for the remainder of the summer season.
I know that someone might listen to all of this, the detailed wands, the phonetic mantras, the copper cauldrons, the astrological timing, and think, come on, this is just an incredibly elaborate, exhausting exercise in magical thinking. Strip away the esoteric language for a second. What is actually happening to the human being performing this?
The text anticipates that exact level of modern skepticism, and its concluding arguments are incredibly robust. It asserts that this sequence is not magic in a passive fairy tale sense. It is a masterclass in profound somatic psychology.
Right.
Every single step requires intense physical engagement. The olfactory stimulation of the burning sage, the heavy muscular exertion of the yoga, the measurable acoustic resonance of the vagal chanting, the hyper-focused visual attention required to build the geometric grids. All of these multisensory physical actions forcefully hijack and shift the human nervous system.
They act as heavy physical anchors for the mind.
They absolutely do. They drag the human brain forcefully out of chronic sympathetic arousal, which is the default state of constant, low-grade modern stress, anxiety, and endless digital distraction, and shock it into a state of parasympathetic rest, deep neurological integration, and intense singular focus. You are actively, physically restructuring your own psychological state.
Which brings us to the ultimate core takeaway of this entire deep dive. The Letha paradigm, when you look at its entirety, is a masterful guide on how to utilize physical, tangible, anchors-heavy, dense minerals, aromatic, bleeding plants, and rigid mathematical geometries, combined with grand, undeniable celestial mechanics, like a literal massive planetary tilt happening tomorrow at 08.24 UTC, to actively counteract the dissociative, fragmented, utterly exhausting effects of living inside a hyper-digital world.
Yeah.
By leaving that activated mathematical crystal grid sitting on your dining room table, you are providing your brain with a daily neuroplastic reminder of your own self-efficacy and your hyperspecific goals. You are looking at it and telling your brain, I physically built this, I am focused on this outcome, and I am operating in alignment with the actual physical rhythms of the planet I live on.
It successfully embeds the isolated individual back into the massive breathing biosphere.
It truly does. And as we wrap up our analysis today, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over, something that builds on the foundations we've unpacked, but pushes the paradigm a step further. We established at the very beginning of this conversation that the solstice marks the absolute mathematical peak of the light, but simultaneously it marks the exact, undeniable moment that the days begin to shorten. The oak king achieves victory, but he immediately falls. The holly king rises to take the crown. If, as the text insists, crystals are highly structured transducers that simply amplify whatever environment and intention we expose them to, what actually happens to the energetic frequency of your perfectly constructed crystal grid as the Earth slowly, inevitably tilts away from the sun over the next 6 months? Does that grid simply hold the memory of the summer peak, locked in time like a frozen, fading photograph? Or does the grid's energy dynamically evolve, changing its flavor as the darkness begins to steadily encroach? That is a mystery for you to explore on your own altar as we inevitably head toward the autumn.
A brilliant, grounded question to carry forward into the rest of the year.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Whether you're observing the solstice high up in a mountain notch at dawn, or just taking a quiet, intentional moment with a cup of tea in your living room, we hope you fully experience and enjoy this incredible 48-hour celestial window. Until next time.